Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. As we're now about to begin with our first panel discussion, I'd like to request all the delegates who are standing right behind at the hall to please take your seats. Well, ladies and gentlemen, consumers today, in fact, have more ways to connect and consume content, and in fact, than ever before. Social platforms as well as real-time conversations mean that brands have to behave more in a human way. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get first-hand perspectives on steps to build lasting connect with the consumers. And firstly, I'd like to invite our esteemed panel members to please take their seats on the dais. Ladies and gentlemen, firstly, can we have a huge round of applause as I invite on stage the Managing Director of L'Oreal, Mr. Jean-Christophe Letellier. Let's have a huge round of applause, please. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to invite on stage our next speaker for the session, who is actively engaged in helping shape the Indian healthcare environment through active participation in leading industry forums. Let's have a round of applause for the Managing Director of Johnson & Johnson Medical India, Mr. Subhoshan Das Gupta. Well, my apologies, Mr. Sushobhan Das Gupta. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, it's also time to welcome our next speaker for the session, who has extensive pharmaceutical experience and is a strategist with global delivery capability. Can we have a warm round of applause to welcome the Managing Director of Pfizer India, Mr. Jas Tobaccowala. Gentlemen, joining our esteemed panel members on the dais, I'd now like to invite on stage our next speaker, who comes with more than 32 years of rich experience in marketing and sales function with Amul. Can we have a round of applause for the Managing Director of Gujarat Cooperative Milk Marketing Federation, Amul, Mr. R. Singh Sodhi. Our next speaker for the session is the Managing Director of Service Plan India, a subsidiary of the Service Plan Group, the largest and the most awarded owner and partner managed communication group in Europe. Let's have a round of applause for Mr. Christoph Kunzendorf.
Okay.
And with that, it's now time to hand over the proceedings to our moderator and speaker, Mr. Bajur. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Pleasure being here. We're going to kick the session off, and we're kicking it off a little late. However, somebody from out here needs to put up their hands and tell me that it's time to take audience questions. Will you do that for me? Yeah? Just as we hit close to, 15 minutes prior to the event closing. Because this is a power panel, the way I look around this dais, I mean, we have people who have done wonders. I mean, we have right to my right, we have RSS, as I would like to call him. He's RS Sodhi. I'm sure he doesn't like the appellation, but what the hell. I mean, he's a person who's cut his teeth on the Amul brand, and now, of course, is the managing director. Of course, we have Jazz out here from Pfizer. I kept telling him what a lovely name he has, and then he added to it that he has a surname called Tobaccowala added to it. So it's a memorable name, the way we see it. We have Chris here from L'Oreal, I mean, doing wonders to this nation. Are you?
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, we have Sushobhan to my left from J&J. And we have Christoph from Service Plan. So I think we have perspectives from across different verticals of industry. We have the pharmaceutical industry represented very solidly. We have FMCG, we have medical services, we have advertising. So I think no better panel to have. So I'm going to kick off and tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to speak for about 5 minutes and give you a brief introduction as to what seem to be the themes in brand, India, and what seem to be the dominant motions which are affecting our lives in brand India. Very quickly, of course. So you'll forgive the lack of detail. The subject is 5 steps in building lasting connect with customers. So the subject is building lasting connect with customers. Lasting connect. In a day and age when connect itself is difficult, how do you build lasting connect? in a day and age where loyalty is suspect and promiscuity is the norm, how do you build a lasting connect? So the theme that we are going to talk about is really whether there is something called brand loyalty, which is opposed by brand promiscuity, which seem to be the new trend in India today, particularly since the market is young, aggressive, etc., etc. I'm going to start with my definition of a brand. I define the brand simply. I define the brand as a thought. The brand is a thought that lives in a person's mind. And this thought is a very powerful thought. It can be a positive thought, it can be a negative thought. So Amul is a thought. It's not the brand, it's not the product, it is not the individual categories that Amul represents. In fact, it's just the thought of Amul, because the moment you think Amul, what happens to you, what are the positive cues that happen to you, what does it do to your palate appeal, etc., etc. That is a brand, and not the specifics, but the generics. And that takes me to the thought that, one brand makes different connects with different consumers at different points of time. One brand makes different connects with different sets of consumers at different points of time. And guess what? This connect could be a positive connect or a negative connect. There is no one brand which actually makes a positive connect with a consumer for 14 long years. Okay? There are ups and downs. A brand is an amalgam of it all. A brand is a function of the positive and negative connect, and a brand is indeed a sum of the residue that it leaves on consumers due to positive or negative connect. So that's the second point I'd like to make. The third is that the times are changing. They're changing very dramatically, guys. You agree? Is it changing? Yes or no? Yeah. My favorite story is of the impatient generation, which is, I do believe the young are impatient. Are you impatient people in this room? Yes or no? Yeah? Are you saying get going in your mind? No, you aren't. Okay. Get out of this room and you'll find a set of consumers who are very, very impatient. The older you are, the more patient you are. The younger you are, the more impatient you are. Okay? And guess what? India is a market where 65% of the sets of consumers are below the age of 35. And all these guys below the age of 35, at least most of them, bulk of them, are very impatient. And you know what we marketeers do? We marketeers are good at patience marketing. We love marketing to patient consumers. But guess what? There's no patient consumer out there at all. So I'm going to kick off with a story of a 14-year-old son, goes to school, and he comes back. He has a school election, and he's standing for the position of sports secretary. Comes back home, and he's looking depressed. Accidentally finds the dad at home. Dad looks at him and says, it's okay, son, winning and losing is a part of the game, because he was looking depressed. Son, 14-year-olds, if you have 14-year-old children, you know how they behave. They brush your hand off and say, Appa, no, I did not lose. I mean, they're impatient. Then I asked him what happened. He said, election happened this morning and results are not out as yet. I said, hey, that's impatience. So I sat him down. Then I asked him, and I sat him down to give him gyan. I asked him, election happened in the morning, when are results coming? After 4 days, he's saying. Now I am also getting impatient. Then the next question I ask him is, I give him gyan on Mahatma Gandhi, and I talk to him and tell him that what Gandhiji had to say about patience. My 14-year-old son does not emote with Mahatma Gandhi at all. He comes from a generation, the only Gandhi he emotes with is Rahul Gandhi. And even that I'll leave aside for now. I then give him gyan about Swami Vivekananda. 150th birth anniversary had just occurred at that time. Fresh in mind, I spoke to him about what Swami Vivekananda had to say about patience. My 14-year-old son does not emote with Swami Vivekananda. He comes from a generation which would rather emote with Swami Nityananda. If you really look at it, after 20 minutes of gyan that I gave him, he stands up and asks me one question. Appa, tell me one thing. Appa, tell me one thing. When you can be impatient, why be patient? When you can be impatient, why be patient? My dear friends, consumers out there are like this. They're impatient. Have you noticed how impatient they are? Have you noticed how demanding they're getting? And guess what? We marketeers, we have grown up being patient with them. and we can only do patient marketing. How do you convert that into impatient branding is the thought that we need to look at. So if you really ask me, this is the generation which I call the plan B generation. You know, they always have a plan B they jump into. And the consumer today, lastly, has two currencies. One is her time, the other is her money. And guess what? We are very good at understanding one currency, which is her money. But we are not so good at understanding the consumer's time. And that's why we patient marketing people do not succeed with impatient consumers. So that lack of connect. So please remember, two currencies for the brand at large. And brands, if you notice, are getting very fuzzy. Look at Apple. Apple doesn't talk about one feature. Apple is Apple. It's the overall Apple. Around this room, even now, if I look at Amul, it's fuzzy. To me, it's reasonably fuzzy, which is good. Amul, what is Amul? I mean, it's there. So if you really ask me, brands are getting generic, whereas commodities are getting specific. If you're buying a mobile handset, which is an Apple, you don't give a damn about the features. You just say, I'm buying an Apple. But if you're buying a mobile handset, which is a local brand, you want to list 16 features if it has those 16 features. And guess what? Even that brand promotes itself basis features. Having said all this, I'd like to say that the brand is a story I like to read again and again and again. That's my definition of a brand. The brand is a story I like to read again and again and again. The brand is a L'Oreal I want to go and use again and again and again and again and get excited by that. If you really look into your own lives, is there one book which you like to read again and again and again and again and not get bored with it? Very difficult. Where brands want to force that upon you, and that's why brand loyalty fights with brand promiscuity. Let's start. I'm going to ask each of the gentlemen around this table. Sadly, not a single lady out here, but I'm going to start with you, Chris, because I want you to define. It's the same question to all the five out here. If you were to define your brand in one word, one phrase, I'd prefer a word, but if that's difficult, a phrase, how would you define L'Oreal?
One word, you say. Tough. I would define a brand as an aspiration. And I think it's everything which is L'Oreal about. It's an aspiration, it's a passport to not be beautiful, but to be self-confident, to be empowered, to step up. And that's all the consistency and the sense of purpose of this one brand across now a century.
Okay, well put, aspiration. What about you, Jazz?
If I had to pick one word, innovation.
Pfizer?
Absolutely.
What did you say?
Innovation.
Innovation. Oh God, I heard it as invasion.
Oh no.
No, that is a deadly one. But innovation. Nice.
We fight invasion of your body.
All right.
But
it's about innovation.
Because and again, innovation has multiple, obviously, aspects to it.
Yeah.
For a patient, right, the innovation is what comes out of our research, finding new cures, finding new fights, right, against the various unmet medical needs that the world has.
Right.
Internally within the company, that same innovation is about different ways of going to market. It's about efficiency. It may be about how you start dealing with different customer sets, because our customer set has changed over the years, right? So it's a one word that I think
is innovation, really. Yeah. And does the consumer give a damn about innovation?
Not with Pfizer.
Yeah.
But with our product,
okay,
absolutely. So unlike most direct-to-consumer models, right? For us, it's typically not the Pfizer brand that we go to market with. It's our products that we certainly go to market with. Behind it, Pfizer as a symbol, right, certainly stands for a company that is always pushing.
So innovation makes a difference. It does. Let me take a molecule, sildenafil citrate, your brand. I mean, it actually makes a difference, has made a difference in this country?
It actually makes a difference. You go talk to a patient who has prostate cancer. And you ask them about the real life difficulties they face, right, in maintaining a healthy lifestyle, a healthy relationship, right? They'll tell you it's made a difference. You go ask a patient who has a challenge with cancer, right? and you ask them what difference innovation makes. One of our products, right, if you give me a minute on this one of our products is for non-small cell lung cancer.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, there are products out for cancer, obviously. Ours has a unique one that is personalized medicine. We basically request people to take a test. In India, we pay for the test.
Right.
It eliminates over 97% of patients.
Wow.
Over 97% of patients.
Okay.
So now we're dealing with a 3%, less than 3% patient population. But for that 3% patient population, our product will work 70% of the time versus an average 30%.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Innovation matters.
Great, great. I don't want to go oblique. We were talking molecules, sildenafil citrate. Would you like to mouth your brand name for the audience?
Well, I think it's probably one of the well-known brand names. It's Viagra.
Viagra.
Viagra, by the way, is not the largest selling product in India for that particular molecule.
Absolutely.
Because we position it very differently.
Absolutely. And it's a question of pricing as well. And I think, you know, the Viagra story is a brand story, if you really ask me, because I don't know what the current price is. What's your price?
It's high.
It's high. You don't even want to talk about it,
it's
right?
10 times what the
you know,
price
you can, the largest brand in this market is likely to be Kavarta, which is a Ranbaxy brand. And it's quite likely to be at 26 rupees a capsule. Whereas, you know, you are likely to be at multiples
over
of that.
10 times.
Over 10 times. So there goes. Let's come to Sodhi. Sodhi ji, if you were to define your brand, and please don't say the taste of India. I'm going to beat you.
No. I think one word, Amul, priceless. Or in Hindi, Amulya. But
Amulya. Nice.
Priceless is one word. But let me tell you, I think here, people sitting here on the dais, when brand comes to our mind, Amul means you are thinking the main is that Amul is highest quality product, value for money. That may be true, but that is the one face of Amul brand. The other face is millions of our milk producers. About 3.5 million people own this company. For them, this brand conveys totally different meaning. For them, this brand is a tool for livelihood or for empowerment. So it conveys different meaning, one set and other set.
Sure. So what you're saying is there is a B2B portion of your brand and a B2C portion of your brand as well. And the B2B is essentially your set of suppliers to you. And or you know, a milk producer. Every guy who milks his cow is your consumer as well, right?
No.
No?
I say C2C.
C2C.
Cow to consumer.
Cow to You know, these guys just can't stop talking about cows. I still remember when I first met Dr. Varghese Kurian in the presence of Sodhi in the old days. One of the things he told me is, and I had a criticism which I made at that point of time. I thought I was a person who knew a little bit about brands. And I told him, sir, you're becoming everything. Amul is becoming everything. Amul is a ghee, Amul is a cheese, Amul is a this, Amul is a that, Amul is this. You're falling in between stools. He said, Harish, we can do anything just as long as it's about the cow. Okay, that kind of thing. Okay, so Shobhan, if you really look at it, how would you define your brand, J&J? Okay, how would you define it?
Yeah, so it's very difficult to say in one word because we have three words which define a Johnson & Johnson brand. And Johnson & Johnson, being a broad-based healthcare company, it has spaces in consumer, has in medical devices, it has in pharmaceuticals. But the one word that really ties them all together is caring. And if you see, the vision of Johnson & Johnson is also caring for the world, one person at a time. And that truly speaks about whatever we do. So, most people know Johnson & Johnson is a baby company, right? So, but many people may not know in the whole world of the billions of dollars as a turnover that we have in Johnson & Johnson, consumer is the smallest. The biggest is pharmaceuticals, and the second biggest is medical devices. But the advantage of being a baby company, it actually rides the concept of caring, right? So when you talk about caring, that's where baby comes in. No one would not care for a baby, right, in the world. So that comes in, and then it gets juxtaposed into all the other brands which comes in. Be it, say, a Neutrogena, which is a Johnson & Johnson brand. So Neutrogena actually signifies, takes the baby caring part of it, and the care then transfers to the skin of a consumer.
Right.
That's where it comes in.
Right.
Or maybe a medical device, say an orthopedic implant.
Yeah.
The way it is put up as a knee implant into the patient who's suffering from osteoarthritis
Yeah.
is also put with the utmost care
Right.
through the training that is imparted to a surgeon.
Right.
So if you ask me one word, Johnson & Johnson is all about caring.
Caring. Very nice. But tell me one thing, Sushoban. Does this care word cut both ways? Let's say that, care is good, because whenever you say Johnson & Johnson, in my mind, a very soft imagery comes by. Whether you start with the way, the fonts with which you write Johnson & Johnson, everything that the baby orientation is conveyed, it's a very soft orientation. For an implant, it's fine. For anything which is a skin device, maybe in the future you might have something like that, or you already have, it's fine. But when it comes to hard goods, which are medical equipment, let's say, does it cut the other way down as well, saying that Johnson & Johnson, oh, it's soft, I mean, it can't be sturdy, it can't be. Does that happen at all?
So again, I think when you go into the micros of a care. So you're getting into the micro definition of a care, and care could be looked at, and there where the concept of trust comes in, quality comes in.
Yeah.
So we really take care to a certain level,
Yeah.
and then softness gets into the consumer space. The quality and the trust gets into the medical devices and the pharma space.
Yeah.
So we take care as our, whatever you call the master or overarching philosophy of the organization or the brand,
Okay.
and then we bring in. So when we talk about trust,
Yeah.
that's where our products come in. The surgeon or the clinician can use that product again and again
Yeah.
for superior clinical outcomes repetitively and consistently.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where I believe
Yeah.
the care arches the entire brand.
No, I'm asking you this question specifically because even Amul kickstarts that thinking in me right now. In terms of saying, Amul is such a soft brand at the end of the day. And if I go back to Dr. Burgess Kurian and what he said about the cow, I mean, tomorrow you cannot be with Amul shoes. Amul shoes would represent a very, very non-sturdy shoe kind of an image. The shoe is about a cow at the end of the day. But still, it's a very, very non-sturdy kind of. Christoph, if you really look at brands from your perspective, from the advertising perspective, I mean, what's happening and how would you define the situation as of today?
Yeah, the first point is for our business and our company, Serviceplan itself, innovation is the main topic, really, the main topic.
Okay.
And it doesn't only belong to the internet today. In the beginning of the 19th, when television became private in Germany, for example, we invented the first split screen TV commercial with a private broadcaster.
Okay.
Or in 1998, we founded the first online agency, the first and the only one in Germany, the online agency as advertising agency. And today, look, with the upcoming of the internet, communication itself becomes so complicated. You have so many choices, and therefore, to find the right way to get into the consumer's heart has nothing to do only with creation or a big creative idea. It's today media as well, and of course technology. And all these things together, the great creative idea, to choose the right way of media, and to use technology today. That's how we understand communication, and that's our strength in terms of innovation. And that's the way in future for communication and I won't say advertising.
Yep. Innovation, so that's a good one. We're going to discuss that in a little more detail when we're coming to the subject vertical of innovation. But I'm going to jump to Chris at this point of time and really, ask him the second point in terms of saying, if there are baby steps in building customer connect with consumers, what are those baby steps that you at L'Oreal follow? I mean, what's your guru mantra? What is your process?
All right. Well, we are not a very processed company. We're more, driven by emotions,
Sure.
gut feeling, and that's
Sure.
the way we do. But if I have to say, the first point is to say that we believe that beauty is universal. So it transcends cultures and borders.
Yeah.
Having said that, we recognize the infinite diversity of beauty in any places,
Right.
and which is always a challenge for any brand on how to find the right connection. So we do believe at L'Oreal that there is not a single brand that can fit all. That's why we have behind the L'Oreal name actually 28 international brands organized in 5 different channels of distribution, from mass market to salon to luxury to dermocosmetic to direct retail, in order to be able to address this infinite diversity of needs and beauty desires.
Right.
The other point is, if we have to summarize in one word, taking your one word challenge of what is our strategy on how to make that happen, it's a word that it's universalization.
Okay.
Universalization at L'Oréal is neither globalization, neither localization.
Right.
It's actually a globalization that respects local needs, and that's the way we are proceeding. It represents to me a new form of globalization, which is more respectful of the reality and the diversity of the world. So L'Oréal is all about global brand, attentive to local needs.
Right.
And that's the way we are organized, actually. We have evolved our global organization from a very centric French headquarters into a multipolar vision of the world, where we have kept a very strong nerve center that gives global vision, global guidelines, global R&I, but totally interconnected with 8 very powerful, agile R&I and marketing hubs in 6 strategic countries for the group in the next decade, out of which, of course, India is part of it. So since last year, we have now a full ecosystem to drive what I call innovation, which is to really customize, adapt everything we do, respecting a global perspective into the
adapted to Indian beauty needs. Indian beauty?
Indian beauty.
Are Indians beautiful?
Everyone is beautiful, and Indian more beautiful than
how
ever.
Universal the comment. Nice. Okay, no. But universal. I'm going to come a little more to you back again on this subject. So, but I'm going to skip, because the topic I want to really delve deep into is this business of how are you able to make this customer connect. So, Sodhi, I'm going to come to you and ask you this. You know, how do you do it? Amul is such a umbilically connected brand to customers. Customers swear by it. In summer, if I don't have my Amul butter, I mean, you know, I reluctantly move over to the competition and wait till Amul comes back. How do you do it?
I think one word, if I say consistency, whatever you do.
Okay. No, you guys are taking my one word thing very seriously. Huh?
Yeah.
It's easy for us also. Okay, you see, like you started, for long-lasting brand cannot be built overnight. You require patience, you require perseverance, and lifetime commitment.
Right.
It's not brands which are built overnight, they fade away also overnight. And consistency, when I said that you need consumer blind trust in your brand.
Right.
And blind trust gives you faith. Faith in a brand, and the faith is like a religion. Once you have got faith in brand, then you don't question anything. You buy it.
Sure.
So that is the faith which we feel billions of our consumers have in Amul brand.
Right.
And that has been built over a period of time. It's not that we have not evolved brand. We have made it a relevant brand, like youth-centric, connect with our youth, that we are trying to do it. But consistency in communication, consistency in core values. What are the core values? Right from day one, 6 decades back when this Amul brand evolved, and 6 decades back when we came, Amul was there in food arena. There was not a single Indian or Hindi name brand. When Dr. Kune wanted to launch Amul, wanted to launch milk powder or ghee or butter, everybody suggested you go for English name. Because that time there were all English name, and said nobody will buy your Hindi name brand. But one fellow in his laboratory suggested Amul, and he launched it. But what I wanted to say is, core value is highest quality product, but value for money.
Right.
That strategy, last 60 years, blindly we are following, and consumer are blindly believing
Interesting.
it.
Very interesting.
And second, very, very important for building brand is, which I feel very few follow, is consistency in communication. Once you have developed a brand, you have developed a communication strategy or positioning statement, you have to continue with that. Like you take our butter, utterly butterly delicious, more than 50 years. And not only communication, the method of conveying that, this Amul topical hoarding campaign, which is more than 50 years. And Amul is the only company which is continuing with CCC, Center Continuing Character, that is our Amul girl, polka dotted girl. We are because whether you like it or you have to continue, then only consumer like. Or Amul Taste of India, we started in 90s. So consistency in communication is very essential.
Sure, sure. Actually, Jazz, at a company like Pfizer, consistency is even more important. Consistency is governed by statute, and that consistency is forever. I mean, you have a molecule, it's fixed, and the binders are fixed, everything, the tablet has to go the way it goes. But at the same time, the industry doesn't use that as its USP or becomes, because everybody has it. How does it work at Pfizer?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because we don't use it because we internally take our quality for granted, right? But,
okay.
but
You're saying Sodhi does not internally take his quality for granted?
No, we do. We don't talk about it because if you think about it, and it's when you're a pharmaceutical company, you're only in the mix when somebody has a problem.
Yeah.
You're typically, with a few exceptions,
you're
not there because it's something I'd like to aspire to. You don't aspire to taking our products.
Yeah.
Typically.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we are there when you have a problem, right? But to sort of help alleviate that problem, you said there is a whole set of governance rules, right? You can't just put a product out into the market. It goes through a phenomenal amount of testing that costs an exorbitant amount of money.
Absolutely.
Right? But once that's done, that's the deal. You have to have that quality in place, and if you don't have the quality in place, you better be the first one to put up your hand and get those products back, right? Because mistakes happen. Everybody's human. So for us, because maybe we take that for granted, right? We don't go out advertising that aspect of it.
Yeah.
But what we certainly not only aspire to, but we certainly believe is there, and this is coming back to not product, but to the company brand, is that that brand is trusted.
Right.
It's trusted to provide, right, a certain quality of product, which, by the way, may come at a particular price.
Yes.
Right? So I think that's where we work on it. Now, what you work on in terms of that consistency aspect with our healthcare providers is that when we do put a product out, we are going to provide them with that consistent set of material that's going to help them treat the patient better. Right? Because when in the medical profession, at the end of it, it comes down to the patients in the center. Right? At the end of it, that's what you're trying to help. And there are choices. There are always choices. India has 37,000 brands. I don't think there's any other country that has 37,000 brands, right? Most of my products, I compete with anywhere from 50 to 150 competitors, right? So why in the world, when we can't go to patients, is the doctor going to write that brand? Is because of that consistency that they have in their mind associated with the brand.
Very well explained, very well explained. In fact, I'm going to now ask Christoph for a comment on, this subject is about, how do you localize a global brand? We tend to always claim and shout from the rooftop that India is a different market. Every country actually shouts that from the rooftop. How does one localize? And must you localize at all? Because, there is a global marketing ethos which used to be in vogue at one point of time, which said that one brand, one appeal. If Timotei shampoo has a particular advertising stance and a brand proposition statement worldwide, it will be the same. If Timotei shampoo shows blonde models in India, so be it, because it uses only blonde models. Never mind that Indians are black-haired and some of us are mixed-haired. So if you really ask me, must we globalize, must we localize, and what's the new take on it at this point?
We in our group, we have one topic, it's called localize. And I'm totally agree with Christoph as he told us about L'Oreal. The first point is save the brand essence worldwide. That's the most important point, save the brand essence. Because from our experience, from my experience, the brand essence is sometimes different in different markets because the local market leader says, oh, we have to do it different, our market is different, and so on. Therefore, I disagree totally. The first point is save the brand essence. And then, of course, you need a global strategy. Yeah, and this global strategy is relevant to each market. And for each market, then you have to localize your communication. For example, we do the international communication and strategy for BMW. And you can imagine that our messages in the American market and the US market are totally different to the messages here in the Asian market.
Sure.
In the American market, we speak about dynamics, and you can imagine when we talk about dynamics, we show racing cars, interesting driving scenes, and so on. Here in the Asian markets, it's all about design, aesthetics, and luxury. And design, aesthetics, and luxury has something to do with material, atmosphere, and so on. And everything in terms of BMW, it's fit together in terms of the brand essence. Yeah, and the great roof is innovation for BMW. And now we have to find out in the different markets where's the focus, where's the habits of the people, and so on.
Okay. At J&J, how does it work? How do you localize this global brand?
So I think we first address these three questions. The first question is what is the customer expectation? And I think we do not take it for granted that a customer in the US and a customer in the UK and a customer in India would have the similar expectations. So we have a very robust mechanism of capturing customer insights, and that's pretty important. So we do understand the customer expectations first. Then we look at what does the brand, whether it's a Johnson & Johnson brand or whether it's a Ethicon Suture brand or a Depuny brand, does it signify? Is that the appealing to the customer here in India or any other parts of the world? And the third is then we challenge the question and say, can we use the global communication or the global strategy here in India? And if not, how do we localize without compromising on the basic essence? Because the customer expectation is, finally, you may say what, but Johnson & Johnson is looked as a global brand.
Yeah.
And the customer who is using a baby powder here or an Ethicon Suture which is being used here would not compromise on the outcome or the experience which is coming out of the brand, whether it's in the US or in Mexico or in China or in India. I think these three parameters, when we address these questions, then we evolve. I'll give you a very classic example what we did. We launched a product, the blood self-monitoring glucose device. It's called Select Simple. And we branded it in a way, or rather we named the brand in a way, it was called Select Simple because we looked at the customer, we captured customer insights, and we saw that patients who monitor their blood glucose in India would not like to have jazzy, fancy stuff that we have in the US and others, which has a frequency of testing, trending, graphs, getting connected to the iPhone. They don't require because they're in the very early stages of development or starting to measure the frequency. So the one word that came up very clearly, give us a simple meter. Right. And we developed the simple meter, which is called Select Simple in India, which basically gives you two sounds. Okay. A sound which is a different sound if your blood glucose is falling below a certain threshold, and a sound which is a shriller sound which goes over the certain threshold. That worked, and today that product is selling well, and I think that comes out very clearly that we did understand the customer expectations and then tailored it, localized it, the global strategy into a local strategy.
Interesting. Chris, you know there's a global brand custodian, let's say for L'Oreal.
Sorry?
There is a global brand custodian for L'Oreal, the brand.
Yeah.
And there is a perennial fight in some companies, I'm not talking L'Oreal, of saying that, you know, what I say must get implemented in the local market. And then the local market, whoever is in the know of the local market, talks a different language. most of the time, the global brand custodian subsumes the debate. And you know, that's how it used to happen in the old days. How does it work at L'Oreal? How do you brand plan?
Okay. So most of the time, we are in a bottom-up approach, but and L'Oreal advanced through conversation. So we have a constant dialogue between global and local to move on.
Yeah.
But again, as I was explaining at the beginning, at the heart of this idea of universalization is to try to find the perfect alchemy between a global brand with universal aspiration that is
Right.
defined globally. When I say, because I'm worth it, it works from Peru to India to China,
Okay.
in all the languages of the world.
Okay.
It's the alchemy of this
Yeah.
and the local relevance.
Yeah.
And local relevance is very far. Our teams, we have teams to do our own advertising, we do our own formula, we do our own product. Everything is local. At the end, it's Aishwarya Rai who will say 5 problems, 1 solution
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
1 product
Yeah.
at 4 rupee.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the translation
Yeah.
where you
Yeah.
will never find in Europe
Yeah. Yeah.
this product or this type of price or this format, etc. And when you look at that on a global perspective, it's a very powerful model because you
Yeah.
can leverage global resource, but the strength in the
Yeah.
on the ground
Yeah.
with your marketing, your R&I
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
design, adapt, tailor-made according
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
the purchase
Right.
habits, pattern,
Right.
etc.
You use Aishwarya Rai, an Indian
14 years.
actor you used in the past, Indian actor for India. Do you also take Aishwarya Rai and use her for your overseas markets?
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's how she started.
Which are the markets that you use them?
We,
Where you use her?
we use her less often, but when we appointed her 14 years ago,
Yeah.
actually she was the ambassador also in France, all Europe, US, for
Yeah.
a mascara called Million Lashes.
Yeah.
And she's always part of our Cannes festival.
Okay.
She's always embeds
Yeah.
the universality of beauty.
Okay.
So she's still used worldwide,
Okay.
but we localize. Knowing that we have also other spokesperson, Alia Bat for Garnier or Maybelline, which are more for the young generation.
Yeah.
We have Katrina Kaif for L'Oréal Paris.
Yeah.
We have John Abraham on Garnier Men. So we are very, very localized at
Okay.
L'Oréal.
Okay.
But respecting a global principle and a global sense of purpose.
Yeah.
Because each of our 28 brands have a sense of purpose which is universal, that can work everywhere if you make the right customization
Right.
when you're on the ground.
Right. RSS, you spoke about consistency, and consistency can be boring. I'm just playing devil's advocate. Consistency can be boring. Anything that's given to you again and again in the same manner without too much of a change, whether it be advertising, whether it be branding, whether it be marketing, whether it be PR, whether it be limitation in the way one reaches out to markets, etc., can be boring. I'm just making that contention, and having made that contention, I'd request, we are entering into the subject of innovation, brand innovation. What's on your innovation plate which you are able to talk about?
See, talking about food, one thing you have to see one constraint. In food, you cannot innovate taste.
Sure.
If you see 30 years, 40 years, I'm 50 years, what used to be on my meal,
Yeah.
lunch or dinner, dal, roti, sabji, I want same taste.
Right.
So one thing is on which you cannot innovate or you cannot dare about innovating is taste. Now what comes innovation in food is basically what are the products which you are not commercially producing or packaging.
Yeah.
Coming to Amul, I think the first long back, 50 years back, Dr. Kurian did one innovation was making milk powder out of buffalo milk, which was not available all over technology.
Yeah.
Second big innovation was producing vegetarian cheese. World over, cheese what you eat is not non-vegetarian. It is produced out of rennet coming out of calf. India is the only country, or Amul is the only brand which is producing vegetarian cheese,
Sure.
and that too also from buffalo milk.
Excellent. Thanks for spoiling everybody's idea about overseas cheese. And thanks for plugging in your brand. Okay.
See, everywhere you have to market it. Okay, now coming, you see, innovation, I give you example of recently what we did is, I mean, flavored milk is being sold in glass bottles since decades.
Right.
We did innovation is because to make this product contemporary and very relevant for the youth, to connect with the youth. We launched about 1.5 years back, converted this product into PET bottle like this.
Okay.
Amul Cool.
Okay.
So that youth can have it in front of everybody, because so such type of innovations in food products one can do.
Okay.
You can do innovation
Okay.
distribution, you can do innovation in labeling,
Yeah.
but as far as content is concerned, better
That's right.
not to do it.
Yeah. A very interesting point that Saudi makes, which is to say that, in food, don't tamper with the basic taste. Amul itself does a lot of R&D and a lot of product process innovations, which actually bring the product to you and keep it alive for you for such a long period of time. Those are process related, possibly. Nanotechnology, etc., etc., etc. Now, you could innovate in packaging, but don't touch the food, is what he's saying. How does it work actually for you, Jas? Innovation.
It's a great example, right? But you can extend, is the way I look at it. Right?
Okay.
We were talking about one of the Pfizer brands that I bet all of you know about. How many of you have taken Bicosools, right? Fair number, right? Right here,
Yeah.
right? You grew up
Yeah.
on Bicosools.
Yeah. I'm
It's-
charging
it's
you
the-
money for using your brand name.
Everybody else does. It is the largest volume B
Yeah.
complex product in the country,
Yeah.
right? And you could sit on that and say, we are the largest volume B
Right.
complex product in the country. But the question is your customer coming in and just asking you for B complex?
Yeah.
Or has other stuff come into the market and that is what they're looking for? So we've actually just recently, another plug, launched Bicosools Performance, right? Which is in the multivitamin space.
Yeah.
Right? Focused on current lifestyles, focused
Yeah.
on the current needs.
Yeah.
Right? So but we're not changing
Yeah.
Bicosools.
Yeah.
We dare not change Bicosools, right? We would have a lot of customers who would be very, very upset with us.
Yeah.
But I think you can extend that space, right? But then coming back on what Chris was saying earlier, right? Your go-to-market models may also be different. So I'll take a different product, vaccines, right? Vaccines typically, when they're sold in the world, the model is you work with the government, you get the vaccines put on the list, then the government in essence buys it or the insurance company buys it and there is reimbursement, right? India is an out-of-pocket market, right? There are very few vaccines that are on the
Absolutely.
government list, and access by itself is a problem, right? India, 65% of our kids actually get vaccinated at the end of the day, even on the free products. So forget about the paid for products. So our then go-to-market model on Prevnar 13, right? Pneumococcal disease, children under the age of 5, adults over the age of 50. And right there you pause and say, children under the age of 5, everybody gets it. A vaccine for children, first thing that you would register.
Right.
A vaccine for adults over the age of 50, that's an entire new concept,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So that then brings about a very different go-to-market model,
Yeah.
right? That you have to go establish with a different set of providers,
Okay.
including hopefully registering it with your patients.
Let's go back to Becky's and let's say, the product hasn't changed too much, has it? I mean, is it still that orange and black capsule which is forever there and those large strips and
Yep.
you want? Yeah. Now, if you really look at it, there's a challenge. You have two sets of customers essentially. To an extent, a doctor and a prescriber, every one of the RMPs is your customer to an extent, and then you have consumers who buy it. The challenge is when you advertise Becky's, the doctor hates it because he says, hey, you're making it so popular. When I write the prescription Becky's, the guy who's paying me $10 for that prescription says, oh, I could have watched television and done this instead of coming to you. So how do you cross that? Because, many of the items in your portfolio are that way, the OTC part of it.
Actually, we don't advertise
At all, Becky's.
Bicosools-
What about Corex?
Bicosools
Corex
is-
again is not
Bicosools,
advertised. What
we
about
have-
Gelusil? Let me go to
Gelusil.
Gelusil.
Gelusil we do.
So do you have
Gelusil we
similar challenges on Gelusil then?
So Gelusil is a great example, right? It's again, proud to say, the #1 antacid in the country, right?
Thank
Lovely.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Take my bows now, right?
Yeah.
It is, right? But it has a balance, interestingly enough. It
Yeah.
has a balance between the prescribers and the customer,
Yeah.
right? reason is, again, going back to that trust side of it, right? We have a set of prescribers who will think of it when patients do come in, right? And when they're not looking to give patients something that is much more hard, so to speak, right? Something that is much more medicinal, so to speak, right? When they're looking to take care of what might be a temporary problem. However, we have another product called Mucain. Hey, I'm on a roll now. So we've got another product called Mucain, which is only prescriber. It is not an OTC product, right? It is not an OTC product, and it is the #1 prescribed antacid in the world. So a lot of it.
So what you're really saying is, companies such as yours need to not only, in one molecule space, maybe have multiple brands. One is an OTC and the other is actually for prescription kind of a thing, which is a way of substituting. And when Mucain comes to that category, you bring in another. So life cycle of brands are going to vary.
Very important.
I'm going to jump into a different subject called digital branding and anything that's related to social. And I'm going to ask Christoph first. Really, Christoph, if you really look at it, we live in a digital world today. India itself is a very aggressively digital market. We have 463 million people on the internet at this point of time. We have subscribers of Facebook, Twitter, etc., huge numbers. Now, in this kind of space, and WhatsApp is the killer application, whether it be urban or rural. I went to a rural corner near Peddapalli recently, and one of the guys I met there, who I was meeting for some reason, said, "Do you have WhatsApp? I'll send you my design on WhatsApp." Your carpenter is talking to you and saying, "Do you have WhatsApp? I'll send you my design on WhatsApp." Now, has this happened to anybody out here? Yeah, plenty of you. Yeah, guys, it's a level playing field, man. Technology has done it. Now, how does it affect brands today? Does it complicate branding or does it simplify branding?
The answer is very easy. It makes it totally complicated. But that's the big but. When we talk about innovation, when we talk about digital, very soon, here in this discussion as well, we talk about advertising. But today it's nothing about advertising, it's about conversation. And each conversation is today a social conversation.
Right.
Yeah. You're here in India, it's a very well-developed market, digital market. There are 200 million people with smartphones. They are around about 3 hours a day in the net. 3 hours a day. And there are 25 hours a day and 365 days a year in connection with your brand. And therefore, the point is, how do you communicate with your audience?
Right.
And now, that's the second point which I would like to do. It has nothing to do about storytelling. It has something to do about listening. Listening to the consumer and listening to the customer, because the customer talks about you. It has to be interesting for you as the owner of the brand. What is the customer talking about you?
Yes.
And I think the great mistake which is done all over the world is we have to do storytelling, we have to do messages into the net, we have to do this, we have to do that. Some clients of mine say, think about a new social strategy. It's not only a social strategy. It has something to do, listen to your customer and find out what is interesting to him. And therefore, I come back to the communication or discussion about consistency. Yes, it's right to be consistent.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah.
But we have to listen to the audience, because the audience follows the listener and not the speaker.
Right. That's a very nice point. The audience actually is following a listener, and the listener is able to give you a lot more in terms of mind data than a talker, and marketers are essentially speakers, and marketers are not good listeners. So Shobhan, how do you listen? You use the word consumer insight. You said that you pick insight very carefully in your category. Could you take us through some steps on that? How do you listen to customers?
I think when you're talking about customers, I guess you're talking about external customers. But one of the things I would like just to take a minute on the internal customers as well. Because when you build a brand within the organization, it's always good not to ignore your internal stakeholders, which are the current employees. So one of the things which we always practice is to understand what's the connect of the employees. We do a lot of Credo satisfaction surveys. We participate in the Great Places to Work With, which gets connected through the employee feedback.
Yeah.
And we also work with our self-employees to understand what's the connect of or what's the feedback in terms of the employees. But the one which you talked about, which is the external customers, what we do is we create a system or a process where we do provision of having customer satisfaction surveys every year. And it doesn't really go across the length and breadth of the organization, but if the way organization is structured, we have different business units, they have different ways of measuring and monitoring, but we make it a point that we really monitor customer satisfaction through these surveys. We also do some of these, take these elements of the Net Promoter Score and others. We do have a very good network of customer service, and we monitor every calls. We look at how much of the customer complaints are getting generated.
Okay.
Whether we have a rule of going back to a customer within 24 hours of a complaint. We measure that, and it goes into a score which we audit regularly.
Yeah.
So these are some of the processes that we do to measure how the customer is getting linked to us.
Yeah.
Obviously, the best way to connect is by working with the customer, understanding them on a one-on-one basis, which we regularly do.
Yeah.
And that's something which gives us how Johnson & Johnson is positioned in the minds and the space of the customer.
Interesting. Chris, I'm going to jump to you and ask you, listening, for instance, listening to social media, the common accusation in this country is that most people don't listen to the chatter on social media, including companies who are meant to listen, including brands. So do you listen to what customers are talking about you? Because that's very important. Theoretically, let's assume it never happens. I know this never happens. A L'Oreal product which gives you a bit of an itch someplace, okay, for a while. It never ever happens, I know that. But the point is, theoretically, let's assume something like this comes up. Can you take us through steps as to what you guys really do? If you listen, you must also act. And how do you act? And what's your listening process?
Well, it's true that the digital revolution has changed the way we interact with consumers. It has changed totally, it has reversed the order. So we used to send advertising that you measure with share of voice. Today, you listen to consumers and you measure share of buzz with their listening tool. So the first thing, of course, to do when really we have started an active platform on social media and digital ecosystem overall is to put in place listening tools. To measure share of buzz, to measure consumer sentiment, whether it's positive or negative, and it's the whole process. So there are all these quantitative, I would say, metrics that we have to listen. But having said that, it's true that what we encourage specifically in our company is also to have also more a qualitative approach, to put as much as importance to the quantitative metrics, to a qualitative listening, and a qualitative touch point. And for that, we are putting a lot of encouragement for our employees. One of them is to make them attend research. So each of our managers will attend the consumer research to take also from consumer the first-hand communication. The second thing is we have a program called Consumer Connect, where there is this platform where you can log to ask for a consumer visit as a manager. And then when you have done this consumer visit at home, usually, a home visit we call it, you share your learning into a database, which become a huge platform for consumer knowledge, connect, etc. We also do what we call, we have a youth initiative Connect, where we talk with consumers in cafe conversation for the youth. We accompany them in their shopping behavior. We watch TV with them, etc. So all this sum of contacts, qualitative touch point, are as valuable to take the pulse of the brand and the consumer connect.
And what's the L'Oreal experience? The chatter on the internet. I'll come to you, Christophe. The chatter on the internet that you actually get, is it all good stuff, or is it a little bit of good and a little bit of bad? If so, how much good, how much bad? Typically for you.
Yeah. But it's mostly very positive. We have 10 million fan base, for instance, if I take only Facebook in India across our 3 mass market brands, and it's 90% positive. You would have always 5-6%, which would be
which will go here and there. This brings me to a question which I'll address to Christophe, and then maybe you could also comment on what you wanted to in this debate. The issue is simply this: digital is an anarchy at the end of the day, because digital gives you the ability for every consumer to actually broadcast. And when everybody broadcasts, it really is an anarchy. Okay? In the old days, if you wanted to create impressions for your products, you would go to media owners. And the media owners were n numbers of owners, and you actually took advertising with them, and they created imagery for you. But today, with the digital world around here, every guy on Twitter is a broadcaster. I mean, I broadcast on Twitter, and if I broadcast once today, I get retweeted maybe 20 times, then I get trolled 40 times. What I'm saying is, in this age of digital anarchy, how does it work? I mean, you know, how does a brand guy look at managing this anarchy?
I won't say that's an anarchy. Of course, there are cases where the so-called bullshit shitstorm is coming around, but the most important fact is be honest to your customer.
Yeah.
And talk to him in an honest way, and don't do any fakes.
Right.
And the great challenge for all the managing directors who are sitting here is, what shall I do with the hell amount of data which is in the net about me? Yeah, that's the great challenge. Big topic, big data, for example.
Yes.
Yeah? And it's not only about listening, it's about learning, as Christoph said, yeah? Learning what the clients would like to have.
Right.
For example, we are doing the dialog communication for Lufthansa worldwide. And today we know from our customers whether he is interested in traveling to Spain, for example. And then we can add, or we can do a special offer for a fly from Munich to Barcelona, for example. That means listening is to learning, and the great challenge with learning is, how can I organize this big data? And that's the challenge for the upcoming future.
Yeah. From a consumer point of view, I'm looking at this entire anarchy to be a positive digital anarchy. Because gone are the days when the marketer would talk top-down to them. Now he's talking back to you on a continuous 1:1 manner. And this positive digital anarchy is meant to change the ways companies behave. So, Sodhi, how would a company change to face this positive digital anarchy?
Before I tell you our experience, just when I was coming in the morning from flight, I had another gentleman, a CEO of one of Gujarati food company. We started off, he said, digital media, very irresponsible media.
Oh my God.
From his side.
Yes.
And he may be right.
Yes.
It's a two-way process. Coming to Amul, I mean, we keep getting so many comments, and we have put special people to monitor what is happening on the digital. Recently, 2-3 days back, one episode happened which became very viral. I think some of you may have seen it. Some lady posted on Facebook, which was shared in more than 90,000 people, that I purchased milk, I boiled it, and it became very sticky, and it is something is related in it, and she put 3-4 pictures and said, and then when she wanted to file one PIL to PM or the health minister and like this, and everybody started sharing, it's very good, Amul has done very bad, this should not have been. When came to our knowledge, we immediately sent our people to meet her at her house. What we found out, she kept few packets of milk in her refrigerator which got expired, and she wanted to make paneer out of it.
I see.
And she heated the milk. When she heated the milk, it became sticky, because that is when pH value goes down and it is chilled, it will become something like cheesy product.
Sure.
So we immediately responded on the same Facebook that why this complaint has happened, and we loaded a video also showing people how it has happened.
Yeah.
And immediately that also got viral.
Yeah.
And we got very good positive responses from same consumers only, and also media also.
Absolutely.
It is a speed at which you have to react with very, very logical evidences.
Wonderful.
Then only you will get positive.
Wonderful. See, again, we're talking young generation, speedy generation, impatient generation. Even marketers need to react speedily, and that's exactly what Sodhi is saying. And I'm running out of time, and therefore I'm going to throw open this discussion to the audience. where we want to take some questions. And I have a lady out there. Please introduce yourself and keep your questions as crisp as possible, and you'll get great answers from this power panel. The lady at the back, could have the mic at the back. Okay, ma'am, you could take your first question, then we'll send the mic back. Yeah.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm Sneha Bhandare from Goa. I'm director and founder of Nirvana Arts Private Limited, which is an apparel lifestyle art-oriented brand. Now my question is, earlier on we've been talking about localization of global brand. And this morning we spoke about being true to yourself as a brand. So now the question is, why in your opinion is it that Indian brands don't make a dent in global markets? We are so accepting of foreign brands in India, but even the biggest of brands in India stop after a while. Why do you think is that? We are very happy to make for other brands outside, but then all these products, especially in my section, apparels, are being made in India for Indians and for the global market. Then why is it not that Indian brands are taking off outside?
Yeah, till now we were made in India. Now we are going to be make in India also.
No,
I'm going to request Sodhi to answer your question, to say when Amul is going global, when a local brand is going global, really global.
You see, this question was there. Firstly, let me tell you, global brand local and local brand regional also. Indian brand, you also do how to make it regional. India, region to region also, we are selling food products. We have to see how we have to see same ghee which we sell in north, which is white. You go to the south, they want brown ghee. So you have to change. Going to local brand to a global brand, it all depends on your marketing strategy. As far as Amul is concerned, presently we are only focused India only. Let me tell you why. Whole world is coming to India. India is the only growing country in the whole of Asia. Prosperity is growing. Everybody is coming here. Why should we go out and sell?
And in summer anyway, he's not giving me my Amul butter.
I mean,
correct.
Excuse me, can I just, I think there is a lot of, what you're trying to say is basically we are the largest consumers. When is it we are going to be the largest brand owners with the kind of population that we have? Why is it? The question is, why haven't we done it? I don't know, because if this stems from the fact that India being a nation who has not attacked anybody, it's an economic kind of a warfare today. Here also we are lacking behind, we are not proactive, we are not going out to fight the battle out there and say, yes, we make a global presence. I mean, is that the reason? And if so, then what as educators or being MDs of big companies are we doing to promote that kind of an ecosystem with the young entrepreneurs and startups to see that they think global? The vision when they start is global.
Okay, I'm going to rest your question on that comment because it certainly is a good comment, it's a positive comment, but we must look around at what Indian brands, when I address overseas audiences, they ask me the same question. You talk so much about branding, tell me about which Indian brand is really true blue global. And I say Mahatma Gandhi, because Gandhiji is a brand which is known in 206 countries today, lives even today as the apostle of truth. I talk about yoga, I talk about TM, I talk about these, but not specific brands. Yes, there were brands like Intel, like Infosys, like Wipro. In these spaces, the kind of work that these companies do are exocentric work. Infosys, if you really look at Infosys brand, it's known in 43 different countries across the world. Wipro is known in about 61 different countries of the world. Cognizant, of course, is a different ballgame, but look at these two hard-boiled Indian companies. So if you really look at it, till we do work for others, till we touch others, we are not going to become dominant brands. But we have to start touching others. The IT business is an exocentric business which touches others. 92.3% of all IT work done in this country is for the outside market. And therefore, we have great brands there. And then there is the second approach of the global approach of saying Tata Global Beverages will start acquiring brands. It will start acquiring 8 o'clock somewhere. It will start acquiring Tetley somewhere. Tata Motors will have a Jaguar Land Rover at one end and a Tata Nano at another end. The Tata Nano you will find in global markets in about 20 countries. The Jaguar Land Rover you will find in about 70 countries. So at the end of the day, becoming global can be generic from start scratch becoming global, or it could be organic, inorganic. All these growth patterns would happen. Your comment is valid. I'll take the lady's question next. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, hi. My name is Chaitanya, and I work with Johnson & Johnson Medical in the knee replacement space. So I have a question for Mr. Jazz Tobacco Wala. And so innovation as a brand message is a very strong message. So my question to you is that in a country like India, where the medical space is a highly regulated space, and there are numerous restrictions around marketing directly to various consumers and customers, right? So, so do you have, like, what are your thoughts rather on connecting with patients directly, and do you have any micro details maybe that you could share? Do you have any ideas that Pfizer is working on?
Yeah, I think you hit the crux of the problem, right? That when you lack the ability to talk to the person who's actually consuming your product, you have potentially a very uneducated customer, right? But that being said, I think you have to acknowledge that the internet is very much a huge component of what patients today use, right, to figure out what's going on, right? Google Diagnostics, we all call it, right? You go in there, you figure out what you've got before you even go show up at the doctor's space. And when they do that, they're not typically coming to pharma companies to find out about a disease state. We have to be realistic in understanding that there are lots of other assets available out there. But there's a change that takes place. Once a doctor writes a particular brand for the patient, now there is a connect. Now that brand matters, right? But to your core question, you can't. Unfortunately, a lot of the laws in India do not allow you to talk to the consumer, right? And I think that at some stage has to evolve. In this day and age, a consumer is not going to accept being kept in the dark. They want to have that connection. They want to know, as they're going through their treatment process, what to expect. And the reality of it is, the healthcare professionals today don't have enough time. We have a huge shortage of doctors in this country. If they all spent 24 hours a day, we still wouldn't be able to hit every patient. So you have to find an alternate model, but that's going to take an evolution of policy. In the meantime, what you can do is you can talk about the broader disease state. You don't want to talk about the brand at the moment. That decision is sort of taken care of by the doctor. But you can talk about the disease states, but even there, it gets to be pretty specific to that patient. Digital allows you that personalization. It allows you that idea. You spoke about diabetes and watching your blood sugar levels. They want that information, but they want that information to be able to provide it to their doctor. You can get there, but in India, it's going to take an evolution of policy. It's going to take an evolution of law, and hopefully that'll come not because we're going to ask for it, it's because the consumers are going to ask for it. They want that information. They want that access.
Any other question? Yeah, please.
Hi. Yeah, my name is Sachin, and I'm from Piramal Healthcare. My question is to Mr. Sodhi. So you talked about consistency. We can understand the brand like Amul, who's sitting on a laurel of so many years. You can be consistent with anything that you launch. So what about consistency with any new product that you launch which is not Amul? You still wait for the consistent results, and for how long?
Sorry, I couldn't get the last line of your thing because the echo here.
I talked about...
No, last line.
Yeah, so how do you measure consistency? For how long you wait for the consistent results? For Amul it could be true, because for so many years you have won consumers' trust. But when it comes to, let's say, any new brand or any new product, how long you wait for the consistency?
You see, like I said in the first also, you cannot build brands overnight. You have to wait. You cannot say that Amul has been built 60 years. It's not that first 10 years, 15 years, 20, we kept on changing the things. So consistency is required. I'll give you one more example is this. Amul is working on an umbrella branding theory. I mean, we are not like other multinational, where any new product comes, new child is born, they give new name. We have got only one child. Then only consistency comes in whole your brand philosophy. If you've got 10 or 15 sub-brands, naturally you will have different philosophy or different brands. But I feel whether it's a new product or new, consistency is required in your communication or in your branding total strategy, whether all the touch points.
Next question, please. Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi, my name is Abhijit. I'm also from Piramal Healthcare, and we are from the OTC wing of it. So my question is to Jazz and Sushovan. So we had a good discussion to explain that that digital can be tackled, and I think Mr. Sodhi gave a very good example of how it was done. But generally in today's age, consumer always wants to be empowered, and they want to be on top of the decision that they're making. So when it is regarding FMCG or personal care, they primarily understand what they are asking. But when it comes to more regions where they don't understand the category and they go by the brand, they can be very strong if the relationship is not dealt with the way that they would have expected it, and they come down very strongly on the brand. So while you all explained very well through a example of FMCG, but how do we deal it if it happens to an category which other consumers also don't understand when they come down strongly on it?
Yeah, so we face this quite often, and the advantage that we have in J&J is we have a broad spectrum where we somewhere we play digital, somewhere we are restricted not to play digital. But having said this, as an organization, you have to first and foremost understand what the customer is. You have to have a listening culture or listening mindset. So if you have that, I think there are various ways and means and platforms where you would be able to read and listen the minds of the customer. The way to reach out could be very different. As Jazz rightly explained, if there is a law of the land where you really cannot go and advertise, you need to maintain that. But having said, you need to really do understand there are several ways and means of reaching it. For example, if tuberculosis is something which is affecting a certain society, if digital is something which is not reaching there, is there any other means that you need to reach? I think we should not always jump into bandwagons which is in thing for today. You also need to understand whether your brand or the need of the customer is getting sufficed through that digital technology or the technology that you're getting in. So to answer it short, I think that's where the job of marketers, that's where the job of organizations are, is to understand the sense and the move of the customer and find out ways and means. There are thousands of other things within the law or the regulations that we could address and reach out to the customer.
Okay, thank you. I think with that we'll run out of time unless somebody has a question which they just can't hold back. No, none of that. No, sir, can you hold that question back or you just can't? I mean, I'm just asking you. No, between the three, because there are three of you. Can you hold your question back or no? Oh, he's holding back. You're holding back, sir? You're not holding back. Okay, he's got the mic also. So let him take it and we'll come to you. Yeah?
Yeah.
He'll definitely take it.
I'm Ashwin. I work for Abbott Healthcare. My question is to Mr. Jazz. Is basically like with a new product running short in the pharma industry and the focus coming back to the matured and the legacy brands, what is and what and exactly how is the role of the innovation going to be for a brand which is in the matured stage and especially which is dominating that particular market in the days to come ahead?
So if I heard you correctly, what's the innovation that can come in on a brand
Yeah,
that already
how
has...
and what would be the role of innovation for a brand which is in the matured stage and which is there for 35, 40 years in the industry?
Sure. Consistency doesn't mean a lack of innovation, right? I don't think, just because just because you've got a power position within the marketplace, whether it's on market share or otherwise, doesn't mean you stop, right? Unless you're a monopoly, which in India for pharma companies is fundamentally impossible, right? There are more customers. Now, how do you reach those customers covers a whole gamut of areas, right? Whether they be like the example I used, where you go with a brand extension model that may position it differently for different customers, or it may be geographical reach, it may be a new indication. I mean, now, yes, maybe something that's 40-year-old may not come into that play, but for some of the more recently launched products, there's always ongoing research in terms of where it may service the customer better. So there are lots of opportunities, I think. There's no brand, I think, that ever simply just stops because it's done.
Ma'am, I'm told we've totally run out of time, but you'll get the first benefit of coming and meeting the participants and speaking to them, the panelists. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to thank all of you and summarize in a minute, which is simply to say that this has been a panel discussion where the CEOs of organizations have come out and spoken from their heart. So first of all, I want to thank them for this great, great effort. And having said that, I must say that we live in very interesting times. The times are so interesting that you really don't know how interesting they are. Okay? You need to go and check that out. We live in interesting times because there's one tectonic shift that has happened in marketing and in branding. And that tectonic shift is the fact that the power has shifted from companies and marketers to consumers. And guess what? This is a very difficult change. A very difficult change for companies, for marketers, and most companies and marketers are grappling in the dark on the issue as to how to manage this. But the answers will be found, and I feel the answer is going to be found in the realm of big data, analytics, and using intelligent, analytics to really understand consumers, listen to consumers, as Christoph said, and really, build an entire culture of listening. Having said that, I must say thanks to all of you, and if you have any questions, I'm sure you can follow all of us. You will find us on Twitter for sure, so you could continue the conversation. Thank you. Take care.
Well, thank you so much, esteemed panel members, and I'm going to request you all to please come together firstly for a group photograph.
Okay. Hey, great. Christoph.